Alright everyone, the age of the neocons has basically ended regardless of what happens with the Alaska Senate primary involving Lisa Murkowski. It's clear that the neocons are now on their way out. Keep in mind, Murkowski's not even like the most aged of them, or even the most disliked neocon in Congress, and she's being primaried from the right by a person who's loosely aligned with Trump, and he said he's going to campaign against Murkowski. This will probably shove her aside. But it would be funny if the Republicans lose that Senate seat in Alaska, have a minority, and then they'd blame Trump. They probably would, and he'd be laughing because he'd be like, well, you stabbed me in the back, so, what's good for the goose, I guess. I don't think that'll happen, though. In a state like Alaska that tends towards being pretty red, having someone like Murkowski is a weakness, I think a liability. And there's a difference between the way the Democrats and the Republicans are trying, the outside groups are trying to reform the party. Hear me out here. In the Republican case, you have people like Tshibaka here, who's running against Murkowski, apparently has a considerable double-digit lead, will probably knock her out of the way, and it is a ranked primary. It's a ranked choice situation. So Murkowski could still end up getting in there, but they could also help Tshibaka because of necessity, I think the second choice would default to the partisan. Again, in a state that's like 55-60% Republicans, not a bad thing for the conservative end, I believe. But the Republicans are trying to chip away at the weaker end of the establishment just to grow their numbers. So you have a few populists and libertarians in the GOP in the Senate and House. They're trying to essentially coalesce around removing some of the weaker neocons and replacing them with new right figures. If they're half as successful as I think they're going to be, they'll have a significant block within the party. That gives them leverage. It means that it will force the establishment Republicans to give them concessions. It'll be a party within a party thing, and it will drag the GOP out of the dark ages that it's been in since the 90s, basically, into the light of populism, and maybe they'll stop being cowards. They'll get something accomplished. They'll stop being reluctant Democrat 2.0. On the Dem side, you see something different. Because they're so federalistic, they're not doing the primary shuffle. They take a very top-down approach. So you have the Geek Squad, the Gang of Four with Tlaib and Omar and Presley and AOC, and Bernie and a few of these other miscreant morons trying to lean on people like Pelosi saying, well, we've got like 6 or 7 people in Congress that represent lunatic leftism. You have to listen to us. And Pelosi just says, fuck off. I don't give a shit about you. Fuck yourself. Much reform, so wow. It's funny because like the Justice Dems and the Lincoln Project, which pretended to be disaffected Republicans, they've now taken that mask off, they're constantly bitching about the situation. Like the Gravel Institute, you're not going to be able to reform the Democratic Party from the top-down level at the federal level from within. It's just not possible. Look to what the populists are doing and you could have some success, but the problem is that requires strategy and restraint. Democrats are very bad at down-ballot things. This is why they always get hammered in the midterms. This is why the Republicans probably retake the House in 2022. Keep in mind, in this last election, which Biden, honk, totally won, they take the presidency, they have a narrow kind of Pyrrhic victory in the Senate, and they lose more than half of their House of Representatives advantage. They also lose one of the state houses, New Hampshire, while they were attempting to knock 6 off. They failed in all 6 cases and even lost an extra one, giving them even less state-level power. Again, for intelligent people within U.S. politics, go for the states and the municipalities. That's where most of the power is. Most of the laws that you suffer under are state level. The taxes may be federal level. The programs are federal level in many cases. The laws and shit are all state. The states have outsized proportions of power over the federal government. Most people don't realize this. They think, well, the president's an emperor and the Senate's sort of like his patricians. No, that's not the way that it works. By design, go for the state houses. Take those over first. And when you see this, you can see the age of the neocons has ended. Meanwhile, the neoliberals are managing to hold their own against the far left. They're not doing... What the fuck has the far left accomplished except getting Biden and Schumer to talk about student loan debt forgiveness, to talk about gun control? We're going to commission a study. I'm going to redirect $10 billion of my infrastructure plan to helping inner city communities to not incarcerate people as much. Whoopee! Yeah, that's really going to take care of the needs and the desires of people who have Che Guevara shirts, I'm sure. We're going to discuss things politely in committee. Biden can't even work with his own fucking party half the time, including some of the neo-libs. Look at Schumer outlefts him. Schumer, Pelosi's lapdog, now that there's a 50-50 Senate, he's sort of like co-runs it with McConnell, thinks of himself as the big kahuna, and it's really funny because Nancy Pelosi, you can tell she rolls her eyes and then gives him marching orders before every time he fucking opens his shrimpy little mouth. But watching Tshibaka here, potentially knock Murkowski out, if you're going to have Lisa Murkowski, why not, why not rank your second choice as a Democrat at that point? And by the way, I can't imagine that Alaska is going to go far left, just to be clear. So you have like lukewarm Democrats, then you have Murkowski, who's a lukewarm, rhino, and then you have someone who's actually, you may not disagree with him, but actually has a principled stance and isn't just grifting. I would think that by default, Kelly Tshibaka ends up winning the race. And also, she's younger and more well-spoken than Murkowski. That always is helpful as well when you're in a primary situation. But keep in mind, again, it is a ranked primary. Nonpartisan, four-person primary system. It's sort of like in California. You can end up with two Democrats running against each other for the gubernatorial race because of the structure of the primary. You can end up with that happening, especially in a crowded field. That's about all. Peace out.